Welcome to the deep dive. So, today we're jumping into something. Well, it's an unusually dark set of sources, really demanding stuff.
Yeah, it's a collection of historical accounts, medical events, unsettling facts, things documented, often on places like Wikipedia that are genuinely hard to look at.
Right. And we want to be clear, this isn't about sensationalism. It's this history that's painful. But our aim today isn't just the shock value.
Exactly. We're trying to understand the patterns,
Yeah.
What connects these specific dark corners of knowledge? What do they tell us about, well, human nature, institutional failures, the fragility of life?
We're kind of tracking the extremes of vulnerability when life or identity or even consciousness gets systematically erased.
Okay, so let's start with something that immediately hits that theme of erased identity, the sheer number of unidentified bodies. Just in the U.S., it's over 40,000 people. Unidentified, many of them victims of foul play.
40,000, it's a staggering number. And it makes you think, how is that even possible today with all our technology?
Well, the reasons are often tragic. Fingerprints might be destroyed, facial features damaged beyond recognition, or sometimes, maybe the most chilling part, there was just no DNA match in any database. Maybe no family ever reported them missing. Their connections are just gone.
And when you look at the records, the temporary names they're given, Odessa Jane Doe, Valentine Sally, One-Eyed Jack. It's like reading a list of ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
Then you see the reconstructed images, the digital faces they create. They're not quite uncanny valley, but they feel so clinical,
Right.
artificial, yet haunting. It's this last attempt to give a face back to someone lost.
And it speaks to this profound failure, doesn't it? A failure to meet that basic human need for significance, for memory. A whole life reduced to a placeholder name and an approximation of a face.
It really challenges you to think about what happens when a life doesn't just end tragically, but is also just forgotten, wiped from the record in a way.
So that's sort of a passive loss of identity. But what about when a mind is deliberately destroyed?
Right. That brings us to the tragedy of Rosemary Kennedy, JFK's sister. Now, she had learning difficulties from birth complications, an IQ somewhere in the 60-70 range, so functionally like an older child, maybe 8 to 12 years old.
And her family, the Kennedys, incredibly powerful and image conscious, kept her condition very hidden. But as Rosemary got older, into her late teens, early 20s, she started, acting out. Became rebellious, strong-willed.
Likely out of frustration.
Right.
Struggling against the pressure to fit in, to be normal in that high-profile world.
Exactly. And her father, Joseph P. Kennedy Sr., started seeing her behavior as a liability, a potential embarrassment, a threat to his son's political careers, to his legacy.
And this is where it gets really dark. He saw her as a problem to be solved, and he turned to a relatively new and very risky neurosurgical procedure.
The prefrontal lobotomy. At that point, it had only been done about, 80 times in the U.S. It was still highly experimental.
And the goal, the doctors basically promised it would calm her down, make her compliant, docile, eliminate the problem.
Eliminate her personality, essentially. Yeah. Eliminate the risk of public embarrassment for the family.
The details of the actual procedure are difficult. She was awake during it, just mildly tranquilized and strapped to the table.
Mm-hmm.
One of the doctors, James Watts, later described the instrument they used. He said it looked like a butter knife. They'd insert it through small holes drilled in the skull near the front.
And then they'd sweep it, literally sweep it side to side to sever the connections in the prefrontal cortex.
But how do they know when to stop?
Yeah.
That's the part that's just chilling.
There were no scans, no precise measurements like we'd imagine today. They relied on performance cues. They actually asked her questions while they were cutting.
Asking her to do things like recite the Lord's Prayer, sing songs, count backward.
Yeah. And they judged how much to cut based on how she responded. They kept cutting until her responses became incoherent, until she essentially stopped making sense.
They stopped when she went silent. The outcome was catastrophic.
Yeah.
Utterly devastating. It didn't make her calm. It destroyed her mind. She was left incapacitated with the mental capacity of maybe a 2-year-old.
Couldn't walk properly, couldn't speak coherently, lost control of basic bodily functions, just gone.
And the family's reaction. She was immediately institutionalized, hidden away,
Yeah.
basically abandoned by most of them for the rest of her life.
It's just, the horror isn't just the medical failure, though that's bad enough. It's the fact that her father ordered this, ordered the deliberate obliteration of his own daughter's consciousness because she was an inconvenience to his ambitions.
That power dynamic,
Yeah.
it's terrifying. The idea that someone's status gives them the perceived right to erase another person's entire being for image control.
Yeah. It's a stark example of power-crushing individual life.
Okay, so if Rosemary's story shows that on an individual level,
Yeah.
let's scale up.
Yeah.
Let's look at institutionalized, industrialized cruelty. We need to talk about Unit 731.
Right. World War II, Japan's Unit 731. Officially, it was a research and development unit focused on things like water purification.
But its real purpose was horrific. Human experimentation on a massive scale, using prisoners of war, mostly Chinese, but also Russians, Koreans, some Allied POWs.
And the personnel referred to the victims dehumanizingly. They called them maruta, logs, just objects for experimentation.
The details documented are sickening. Stuff you can barely imagine humans doing to other humans.
They would intentionally infect prisoners with diseases, plague, cholera, typhoid, syphilis, then vivisection, cutting them open while they were still alive without anesthetic.
Why?
To observe the disease progression in real time, to see how it affected the organs. And this wasn't just on men, it was on women, children, even infants born in the camp.
The sources list other specific experiments. They almost defy belief. Amputating limbs and trying to reattach them to the opposite side of the body.
Studying blood loss, gangrene. They'd freeze limbs solid to study frostbite. They tested weapons on live targets.
Grenades, flamethrowers, just tested on rows of tied-up prisoners.
They were also heavily involved in developing biological weapons. They actually released plague-infected fleas over Chinese cities, causing massive outbreaks.
The estimated death toll from Unit 731's activities is staggering. Around 250,000 people killed in these experiments or related outbreaks.
So the obvious question is accountability. What happened to the people who ran this place, who performed these atrocities after the war?
You'd expect war crimes trials, surely.
Well, here's a really disturbing part. The key figures, the lead researchers, the commanding officers like Shuri Ishii, they were never prosecuted. They were granted immunity by the United States.
Immunity? For that, why?
In exchange for their data, all the detailed records of their human experiments. The U.S. saw strategic value in the biological warfare research, the data on disease progression, frostbite, data obtained through torture and murder.
So they traded justice for data gained through genocide.
Essentially, yes. And for years, survivor accounts, testimonies from Chinese sources, they were largely dismissed in the West, often brushed off as communist propaganda.
It just shows how complete the dehumanization was.
Right.
The victims didn't count, but the scientific data extracted from them did. Enough to buy the perpetrators their freedom.
It's a deeply unsettling example of realpolitik overriding basic morality.
Okay, let's shift gears again. From institutional evil to something biologically bizarre, almost uncanny before it turns dark. Let's talk about Terrer.
Terrer. The Frenchman from the late 1700s with the legendary appetite. His case was documented by military surgeons and physicians at the time because it was just so medically baffling.
What was so strange about him physically?
Well, reports say he had an unusually wide mouth, like unnaturally wide, stained teeth, very thin lips you could barely see. And despite eating constantly, he was apparently always thin. Extremely thin.
But he could eat enormous amounts.
Prodigious amounts. There are accounts, medical accounts, saying he could eat his own body weight in beef in a single day. His stomach would just swell up massively like a balloon, then deflate later. His metabolism just didn't make any sense.
Doctors were fascinated, obviously. They ran tests on him.
Yeah, they tested his limits. And the accounts get pretty disturbing. It wasn't just food he craved. He ate corks, stones, pretty much anything.
There's that infamous story about the cat.
Right. Reportedly, he was given a live cat, and he tore it open with his hands and teeth, drank its blood, and ate the entire thing, except for the bones. Just consumed it.
And another one about swallowing a whole eel without chewing.
Just gulped it down. His capacity was apparently limitless, and his hunger never, ever satisfied.
But it didn't just stay in the realm of weird eating feats, did it? It got darker.
It did. While he was being studied at a military hospital, suspicions arose. He was caught trying to eat discarded bandages, even attempting to drink blood from patients undergoing bloodletting. There were rumors he'd eaten bodies from the morgue.
Then the final incident.
A 14-month-old baby disappeared from the hospital, and while they couldn't prove anything definitively, Terrer was a prime suspect. The doctors, finally horrified by what they might have enabled, kicked him out.
He died a few years later, in 1798. Officially, the cause was tuberculosis, though he apparently believed he was dying because of a gold fork he claimed to have swallowed years earlier and thought was stuck inside him.
Which leads to the autopsy, which was itself pretty gruesome. His body decomposed incredibly quickly. Apparently, the stench was unbearable. Most surgeons wouldn't go near it.
But one did proceed. What did they find?
Some really extreme physiological abnormalities. His gullet, his esophagus, was abnormally wide, so wide the doctor reported he could look down it directly into the stomach when the jaw was opened.
Wow.
His liver and gallbladder were unusually large, and his stomach was enormous, described as filling most of his abdominal cavity, and it was covered in ulcers. Basically, his insides were as bizarre as his appetite.
And the Gulf War.
Never found. So likely tuberculosis was the real killer, despite his belief.
Okay, so we've gone from the unidentified dead and the loss of identity
To the deliberate destruction of a mind with Rosemary Kennedy's lobotomy.
to the industrialized slaughter and dehumanization of Unit 731.
And finally, this bizarre biological anomaly turning sinister with terror. It's quite a journey through darkness.
We even touch briefly on other things in our source material, like Albert Fish's chilling letter, the sheer brutality of the Nanking Massacre, the instantaneous horror of the Byford Dolphin incident.
Yeah, the source stack was extensive.
Right.
But looking back across these specific cases we focused on, what's the thread? It seems to be about vulnerability and power, doesn't it?
Yeah. Whether it's political power, scientific authority wielded recklessly, or even just the powerlessness against one's own biology or against institutional evil. These stories expose the terrifying extremes of what humans can do and what can be done to them, our fragility.
But maybe for a final thought, let's pull the lens way, way back. One of the sources we looked at wasn't about human acts at all. It was an article outlining the predicted future of our planet, our solar system, the universe, over billions of years.
The cosmic timescale stuff.
Exactly. The slow death of stars, the expansion of the sun engulfing Earth, the eventual heat death or decay of the universe itself. It's this long, inevitable list of cosmic events.
And why is that unsettling in this context? It's not exactly creepy in the same way.
No, it's not about malice, but it's unsettling because of the sheer mind-bending scale. It forces you, the listener, to confront just how incredibly small and temporary all of this is. All the human drama, the suffering, the cruelty, the ambition we've talked about.
It all just gets swallowed by cosmic time and entropy.
Precisely. It puts human history, even its darkest chapters, into a humbling, almost terrifyingly vast perspective. Our impact ultimately is fleeting.
That is a very large thought to end on, and maybe an appropriate one after delving into such intense human stories. Thank you for joining us in this particularly challenging deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for sticking with us through this difficult material.
We really encourage you to keep questioning, keep reading, exploring these histories, however uncomfortable they might be. Keep seeking knowledge.
Until next time, bring your sources, and we'll take the deep dive.